following subject matter is real and only intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised.
People are dead after deputies say a man went on a shooting rampage.
I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her.
I can tell you the scene out there is absolutely horrific.
Nobody knows where this individual may strike next.
This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe, I'm the host, and thanks for joining today. And this is the third and final part of the story of how and why Chris Watts killed his whole family. And I know that sounds kind of rough, but it's a fact. No matter how many desperate women send him letters to his home in his prison cell, he's still a murderer. He savagely took the life of his own wife after he decided that he met someone else and didn't want to be with her anymore, instead of getting a divorce like any non-deranged human would do. And not only that, with Shanann, he killed their unborn son and his two very young and obviously innocent daughters. And if it feels like I might be shaming the women, and men I suppose too, that have been sending him mail, trying to flirt or whatever they're doing, let me be clear. Yes, I am shaming them. It's gross and you should be embarrassed if that's what you're doing. He's a murderer that killed his wife and kids. Family annihilators is a term used to describe men who murder their entire families. Often behind such an act is some kind of incident, like a loss of job or money issues. While there are often signs indicating that someone may be on the verge of doing something terrible, for example, people who engage of acts of domestic violence, there are others who don't show any type of predictive signs before they suddenly get murderous. Chris Watts was a model example of an annihilation case where nobody knew it was coming. And in the larger context, Chris was different from many other men killing their families. Often, the person kills themselves after first sparing their family from imminent financial harm or ruin or embarrassment. But Chris definitely was not thinking about his family when he strangled and smothered them to death one by one. He was just thinking about himself. The fact that Chris did not kill himself or run away tells us a lot about his self-centered thinking, and that he really thought he would get away with the murders. But how much truth is in his explanation that he just snapped and strangled Shanann to death after she threatened Chris would never see the kids again if they divorced, which is what he later said? Or did Chris plan it all because he wanted to start a new life with his mistress, Nikki Kessinger? And let me make a brief distinction between the two Nikkis involved in this story. In the previous episode, you heard about Nikki that was Shanann's friend that called the police and insisted that Chris come home to try to find Shanann. That's a different Nikki than Chris's mistress, Nikki. Initially, Chris tried to blame his wife for everything, but in the end, he pleaded guilty to the murders of Shanann and his children on November 6, 2018. Chris was only saved from the death penalty due to Shanann's family request. The court supported the family's decision, and so on November 19th, Chris received 5 life sentences, 2 concurrent and 3 consecutive, without parole. Additional 48 years were also added for the illegal termination of Shanann's pregnancy, and 36 years for 3 charges of unlawful tampering of a dead body. On December 5th, Chris Watts was sent to Dodge Correctional Institute in Wisconsin, a maximum security prison, to serve his sentences. That could have been the end of it, but too many questions of Chris's affair remain. He didn't blame the affair for his actions, but it may have accelerated the process. After all, he said it was surprisingly easy to drop his daughters in the oil tank as he felt finally free to be with his new girlfriend. So was Nikki really a well-intentioned woman who fell in love with a killer, or was she part of the plan of getting rid of Chris's family? Allegedly, Chris met 30-year-old Nikki at work, June 2018, and became mesmerized from the first sight. Nikki claimed that Chris had told her that he was in the midst of a divorce and was finalizing the details with his wife. As Nikki believed what she was told, the two began a physical relationship in early July and saw each other 4 to 5 times a week, which seems like a lot, as Nikki claimed that she told Chris that she wanted him to take things slow so that he could focus on helping his children through their parents' separation, something that was never actually happening. Meanwhile, Shanann was unaware of the affair, even though she began to see signs on Chris that everything was not right. At first, Chris put a lot of effort into his wife not finding out about the affair. For example, he added Nikki's number into work contacts on his phone, and all the nudes the two were sending back and forth to each other were hidden in a folder on his phone meant to look like a simple calculator app. And in case you don't know about that, check the App Store. That's a real thing. But on the other hand, Chris sometimes went long times without answering Shanann's calls while he was seeing Nikki, and then claimed that he had fallen asleep. Chris also used his and Shanann's joint credit card to pay for dinner with his secret girlfriend. It seemed that in the end, Chris didn't care anymore if his wife saw the signs of his infidelity. However, Nikki, who was seemingly in love with Chris, patiently waiting for his divorce to be finalized, quickly turned on him when she heard about the disappearance of Shanann, Bella, and Cece. Nikki claimed she felt terrible, especially after she found out Shanann was pregnant at the time. Quote, "I wonder if there's more to the story than I know because I think he's a really good guy. And I'm worried about his wife and kids. And it's just freaking me out because those little girls are just so little. And she's pregnant, And it's like, where's their mom?" Either Nikki was really concerned about her boyfriend's family, or she just wanted to cover her own butt when she decided to reach out to the authorities about the affair before they ever contacted her. During her interview with the police, Nikki said that it was Chris who had been looking for a relationship with her and that Chris had said the words, "I love you," to her while she didn't feel the same way. Which is curious, as Chris himself said that one reason he was drawn to Nikki was that she pursued him, not the other way around. Also, Nikki's internet activity showed that she was searching for wedding dresses for hours and topics relating to marrying your mistress just days before Chris murdered his family. Even more questionable were Nikki's searches for how much money author Amber Fry made in her book deal and her net worth, and, quote, "Did people hate Amber Fry?" And if you've never heard of Amber before, she was the mistress of a man named Scott Peterson, who murdered his wife and unborn son. Sound familiar? On July 24th, Nikki Googled the phrase, "Man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife." A little bit weird of a search for a woman who claimed she was not even in love with her boyfriend and just wanted to take things slow. When Shanann and the girls went missing, Nikki claimed she pushed Chris to tell what he knew about their disappearance and kept asking what he had done. Quote, "Got to a point that he was telling me so many lies that I eventually told him that I did not want to speak to him again until his family was found." But Nikki did not wait until that happened. Instead, she took matters into her own hands and reportedly called the Weld County Sheriff's Office to tell them about her relationship with Chris and his many lies. Quote, "I just wanted to help. With a pregnant woman and 2 children missing, I was going to do anything that I could." It almost feels like she's trying to do the right thing by coming clean. However, before contacting authorities, Nikki had deleted all of Chris's information from her phone, including messages and pictures, like she was trying to separate herself from him, knowing what was about to come. District Attorney's Office records also revealed that authorities who examined Nikki's phone found hours worth of searches for Shanann Watts, and after the murders, a search using the phrase, "Can cops trace text messages?" Still, no matter how strange Nikki's behavior and Google searches sound, her cooperation proved essential. As Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke said, "Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell." And so when Chris Watts was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, Nikki Kessinger just disappeared. Right after her boyfriend's arrest, Nikki was fired from her job and allegedly sought employment out of the state. And even though she had been cooperating with the investigation, Nikki's name was now connected with Family Annihilator, which may have led her to change her name or seek protection to start over. One source claims that Nikki Kessinger is actually in the Witness Protection Program, saying she has received several threats, public shaming, and could be considered one of the most hated women in America. She plans to start fresh with a new name, new town, and ultimately a new identity. While that sounds plausible, Nikki also never testified in court as a witness, as Chris pleaded guilty and avoided trial. So there is some doubt about the allegations. Only time will tell if we hear the whole, true story of Nikki Kessinger, and did Chris come up with this gruesome plan all by himself? Meanwhile, nothing brings back Shanann, Bella, and Cece, but Shanann's still active Facebook account is full of videos and pictures of her and her children and mementos of a life that once was. And of course, there is a man, broadly smiling in the photos, reminding us that behind the perfect outer shell, there can hide a monster. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for listening today and to this episode series on Chris Watts. If this week was your first time listening to 10-Minute Murder, I hope you'll consider subscribing and telling your friends about this podcast. And if you really enjoy it, leave a review if you listen on Apple Podcasts. And by the way, people have asked how 10-Minute Murder has anything other than 5 stars. And first of all, thanks. But people have opinions, and it seems like we are all likely to share those opinions when it's the opposite of the things that we like. When you're happy about something, we usually don't say anything. But to answer the question, one person a while back got ticked because I called a murderer that spent like 18 hours a day online playing computer games. I called him a nerd, and he used that defense that he killed people because he thought he was in a game. I called him a nerd and somebody didn't like it, and I don't know. And another person said that they love 10-Minute Murder, but they didn't like that I have commercials. Okay, I mean, they're skippable and you pay $0 for the show. So are you also mad at Hulu or 60 Minutes? I mean, Dateline has commercials, so that one confused me, but whatever. Despite that, I do actually enjoy the feedback. I like reading the feedback. And not just the good feedback. I like hearing, what you guys think. And some of you send me marriage proposals, which some of you are weird. I mean, I'm weird too. That's fine. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, and this is going to turn into 40-minute murder if I don't hush. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and good night.